Welcome to PageJumpers podcast. We are your guides leaping through portals of ink, spellcraft, and starships. Think of us as your shortcut to being well-informed on the books you love, maybe with a few surprising facts and just enough witty banter to keep you hooked.
We're pretty new here, so if you like what you hear, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps us out a lot.
It really does. Okay, so today we're diving headfirst into a book that, honestly, flips the script on first contact tropes. We're talking Expeditionary Force, Columbus Day by Craig Alanson.
Right. And our cold open hook, our, let's say, provocative insight for today. Forget Roswell deserts or peaceful greetings. What if first contact involved aliens crash landing in your neighbor's potato field? And things went sideways because a nervous deputy fired first.
Exactly. It's grounded, chaotic, and darkly funny right from the start. So our mission today is to unpack this whirlwind. We'll dig into the immediate aftermath of that chaotic arrival, the bewildering layers of galactic war humanity gets dragged into, and the really uncomfortable questions about allies who might be worse than the enemies.
We're going deep on the themes here. Survival, obviously, but also the morality of war, humanity's, frankly, tiny place in the cosmos, and what happens when your saviors look at you like, well, like monkeys.
So grab your beverage of choice, settle in, because we're about to get a very close look at what happens when Columbus Day gets rudely interrupted by interstellar conflict. Okay, let's set the scene. It all begins on a seemingly normal Columbus Day morning, northern Maine, crisp autumn air probably. Our main guy, Joe Bishop, Army soldier, he's home on leave, visiting family.
Yeah, it's almost painfully idyllic, isn't it? That classic slice of rural Americana. The kind of quiet place where nothing much usually happens.
Until it does, big time. Well, it starts as curiosity about some twinkling lights high up in the sky.
Which turn out to be Ruhar warships jumping into orbit, by the way. Not exactly friendly fireflies.
Right. That curiosity very quickly turns into alarm. Because suddenly, industrial sites globally are getting hit. Not bombed, but like surgically taken out by hypersonic railgun darts.
It's terrifyingly precise. This isn't some random destruction. It's targeted, strategic. They hit power plants, refineries, factories, the things a modern society, needs.
And the source material, the book, it really drives this home on a personal level. It doesn't just stay global. It zooms right into Thompson Corners, Maine, where a Ruhar combat transport literally skids across the Alason's potato field,
leaving a burning streak, setting the field on fire. Bishop sees the smoke from the potato warehouse. It's that immediate, visceral, oh crap, this is real moment. The phrase used is officially alarmed, understated much.
Just a bit.
Oh.
And suddenly this rural town, a place described where nobody relies on one job, people are resourceful, doing lumbering, guiding, welding, it becomes ground zero.
And chaos descends. Communications go dead. Radio, cell phones, TV, internet, even the power grid. Poof. Within minutes, it's a total blackout, plunging them back decades technologically.
The targets are so specific, too. The potato warehouse, the narrator jokes they must have had something against potatoes, but also the two bridges over the Scannicut River. Why bridges in rural Maine? It feels weirdly specific.
It highlights that localized, disorienting nature of it all, and Bishop's first thought isn't, how do we fight back? It's, I need to get my kid's sister. It's that primal instinct kicking in.
And his dad's weapon, a bird-hunting shotgun. Good for quail, the text says, and not much else. Talk about being unprepared. You got hypersonic railguns upstairs, and he's got a shotgun downstairs.
It perfectly underscores that gap, that asymmetry.
Yeah.
But then, this is where the narrative takes its first really sharp turn, or first big theme breakdown, maybe, challenging expectations.
Okay.
Well, the narrator, Bishop, he straight up says the Ruhar don't eat humans, they don't kill babies, the usual alien monster stuff. But then he drops this bombshell, this hot take.
The one about the sheriff's deputy.
Exactly. He says, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, if that deputy hadn't opened fire, the Ruhar might not have killed a single person in town.
Wow, okay, so let's unpack that. That flips the whole invasion narrative, doesn't it? It suggests the Ruhar weren't initially there for slaughter.
Right. Maybe just demolition, surgical strikes on infrastructure. And Bishop, drawing on his peacekeeping experience in Nigeria, he gets it in a grim way. He says something like, if some idiot was taking pot shots at me, I'd light him up with a rocket too.
It's that cynical universal logic of combat. Don't shoot at the heavily armed guys unless you want a world of hurt.
So the immediate question becomes, how much of that initial bloodshed was actually caused by human fear and misunderstanding, not inherent Ruhar evil?
It throws everything into this moral gray area right from the start.
Yeah.
No easy good guys versus bad guys here. The lines are blurry from page 1 almost. Okay, so chaos reigns, tech is down, weapons are primitive. How do you even begin to fight back?
Well, if you're Joe Bishop, you improvise. You need transport, you need something tough, you find a perfect truck.
Which turns out to be
Wait for it.
a captured, banded ice cream truck, complete with a giant purple Barney doll plastered on the side. You cannot make this stuff up. It's just peak sci-fi absurdity meeting grim reality. The visual is incredible.
And it perfectly captures that dark humor, that making-do spirit that runs through the book. They don't even bother repainting it because, well, who has the time? And maybe what does it even matter anymore?
It's like we're fighting aliens in an ice cream truck. Sure, why not?
And the ingenuity continues. They managed to capture a Ruhar soldier, the one they nicknamed Fuzzy Face or Hamster, because apparently they look a bit like giant hamsters.
Right, the Ruhar. Not exactly terrifying insectoids, more like oversized rodents in armor.
And how do they stop him from being tracked? They wrap him in lead vests, like the kind your dentist uses when taking x-rays.
Seriously, that's brilliant. Low-tech, desperate, but clever. Using everyday objects for counter-surveillance against advanced alien tech.
It's that resourcefulness again, born out of necessity. But then things get even weirder. The Ruhar naturally come back looking for their lost soldier and gear.
Standard procedure, you'd think.
Yeah, but right when things are getting tense, more lights appear in the sky. And explosions. But it's clearly not the Ruhar this time. Something else is happening up there.
A different kind of orbital bombardment.
Seems like it. And the Ruhar ship they were watching, it just bugs out. Takes off straight up fast like it got new urgent orders.
Okay, so this is our first real hint, isn't it? That Earth isn't the main event. We're caught in the middle of something much bigger.
Exactly. A pre-existing galactic conflict. The Ruhar were hitting Earth, but now someone else is hitting them, or at least showing up in a way that makes the Ruhar prioritize leaving Earth immediately. We're not the prize. We're maybe just a battlefield or a pawn.
Which leads us to humanity's official response. Fast forward a bit. Joe Bishop is now federalized, part of the National Guard.
Yeah.
And how's he getting deployed?
Riding a freight train, like a hobo as he puts it, heading south to Camp Alpha in Ecuador. This is it, the United States Expeditionary Force.
It sounds less than glamorous.
Oh, incredibly so. And the force composition. Lieutenant Gonzalez lays it out starkly. No armor or cavalry, just infantry. Why? Because the Kristang said they needed infantry.
Okay, so these are the new aliens, the ones who showed up after the Ruhar. Our supposed savior.
That's the initial impression, yeah. But that line, they said they needed infantry against an enemy with orbital capability, it's humbling and deeply concerning. It already feels like we're just taking orders.
And the journey itself reinforces this primitive status.
Yeah.
Bishop gets his first decent cheeseburger in a very long time after a basic medical scan that just confirms he's healthy enough. Not exactly peak performance screening.
And then the big shocker, the trip to the alien world where they're needed. It's 1,223 light years away, even traveling at 300 times the speed of light.
How long does that take?
4
Year.
3 years just in transit. Oh my God.
Think about that. You sign up, you get on this alien ship, you're gone for 4 years just getting there, and another 4 years back, presumably, if you even come back. That's not a deployment, that's exile. You're missing almost a decade of your life back home. Everything changes.
And the conditions on board aren't exactly luxury travel. Zero-G adjustments, basic, almost humiliating facilities described like a rest stop bathroom. It strips away all sense of normalcy, of dignity almost.
It really drives home the alienness of it all. Not just the species, but the whole situation. The scale is just mind-boggling.
And Camp Alpha itself, when they finally arrive, it doesn't get better. Bishop's assessment is blunt. Camp Alpha was our first alien planet, and it sucked.
No gleaming sci-fi cities then?
Nope. Dry, dusty, hot, humid, weird, low, pulpy lichen instead of grass. Basically a miserable tent city on a hostile world. Even the MREs get cynical nicknames like cinnamon cardboard.
So humanity's first steps into the galaxy are kind of pathetic and depressing.
Pretty much. They're outmatched, uncomfortable, psychologically strained. You see them trying to cope with pickup basketball games, swapping stories, but the shadow of what happened hangs over them.
Like Shauna, the soldier who says the Ruhar stole our innocence, and now nobody can look at the sky again without fear. That hits hard. It's the psychological scar of contact.
And back on Earth, things aren't great either. No power for months, fuel shortages, but you also see that human resilience kicking in. Bishop's dad bartering repairs for straw to help refugees, old steam trains being fired up. Good old American ingenuity, the text calls it.
A real contrast, isn't it? Low-tech survival back home while a handful of soldiers are being flung across the galaxy using tech they don't understand.
And the Kristang, our supposed allies. They're not really helping rebuild Earth, except where it serves their war effort. They look down on our fossil fuels, but only give us a couple of fusion reactors for their base.
It's all about them, isn't it? Which brings us squarely to the Kristang agenda. And the deception? Hashtag, tag, allies or overlords. The Kristang agenda and human deception.
All right.
So, the Kristang arrive, chase off the Ruhar remnants, and present themselves as saviors. But the cracks start showing pretty quickly.
Immediately. It starts with the equipment. They give the human expeditionary force basically hand-me-downs. Slightly upgraded M4 rifles, but with very limited ammo for the cool explosive tips.
Meanwhile, the Kristang have their own advanced gear kept totally separate. It feels condescending.
The narrator nails it with that children's table analogy. It's like the Kristang are just humoring humanity's desire to play soldier in the big galactic war. Okay, kids, here's some safe toys. Now stay out of the way.
They even give human pilots captured Ruhar aircraft the ones nicknamed buzzards and chickens, because they're apparently clunky and ugly.
Which is practical for the Kristang, right? Use the enemy's own tech against them. Let the humans fly the unfamiliar, probably less capable ships. Less risk for Kristang pilots.
And those cool tactical radios, the super thin ones with indestructible screens.
Mostly for Kristang intel. They transmit helmet cam feeds back up the chain. So human soldiers become walking surveillance cameras for the Kristang commanders. Our tech integration is just another way for them to monitor and control us.
It's not an alliance. It feels more like managed assets.
That's a good way to put it. And the war games they run, like Valiant Shield. Total farce. Bishop's platoon gets declared dead from an orbital railgun strike like an hour in, with no real explanation.
Like rolling dice. Your number's up, you're out. No tactical learning, just arbitrary elimination.
It suggests they're not really evaluating human capabilities. They're just seeing how we react. Or maybe just reinforcing our helplessness against their kind of weaponry, showing us who's boss.
Okay, so the relationship is clearly unequal, bordering on exploitative.
Yeah.
But then comes the real revelation, the game changer.
Ah, yes. Tea time with the Burgermeister. Bishop starts having these clandestine conversations with the captured Ruhar regional governor.
The Burgermeister, right. And what does he reveal?
This is the core twist, the big antivision segment for us, maybe, challenging the whole premise. The Burgermeister explains the Ruhar attack on Earth Columbus Day. It wasn't an invasion to conquer us.
It wasn't. Then what was it?
It was a spoiling attack.
A spoiling attack, meaning?
Meaning their goal was, and this is almost a direct quote, not to kill your people, but to reduce your industrial capacity. Why? So the Kristang would not find it so easy to sustain a foothold at the edge of our territory.
Hold on. So the Ruhar attacked Earth to stop the Kristang from using it as a base against them.
Precisely. Earth was already a target for Kristang expansion or exploitation. The Ruhar saw it coming and tried to deny those resources to their enemy. The attacks on power plants, refineries, factories, it was strategic denial.
In the human casualty.
Collateral damage, according to the Ruhar. Horrific for us, obviously, but from their perspective, a calculated risk in their war.
Okay, this completely recontextualizes everything. The Ruhar weren't the primary aggressors against us. They were acting defensively against the Kristang, and we were just in the way. Or rather, the resources on our planet were the target.
Which leads to that deeply uncomfortable question. If the Kristang were already planning to move into our neighborhood and the Ruhar tried to stop them, even violently, who was actually the bigger threat to humanity in the long run?
Were the Ruhar, in a twisted way, trying to protect their border, which happened to include us, from Kristang encroachment?
It's a possibility the book forces you to consider. What would have happened if the Kristang just showed up first, unopposed, given what we learn about them later?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah.
Because the Burgermeister doesn't stop there, does he? He reveals the Kristang playbook.
Oh, and it's chilling. Their standard operating procedure for taking over societies. Find the worst psychopathic, antisocial losers, give them power, and in return, get their complete, unquestioning loyalty.
He literally compares it to how figures like Hitler and Stalin came to power, using the worst elements of a society to control the rest.
It implies the Kristang see us not as potential partners, but as a population to be subjugated, managed through local tyrants they install.
And their supposed rules of engagement. No nukes, no bioweapons, no dropping rocks.
Not about protecting civilians. It's about preserving the war prize. They don't want to damage the planet they intend to exploit. They look down on our fossil fuels, but only provide fusion power for themselves. They literally rent out human soldiers for jobs no Kristang wanted to do.
Rent-a-grunts, disposable assets.
Exactly. And the most disturbing part, Bishop learns the Kristang condone, even carry out, the torture and execution of human soldiers, especially women who defy orders from men, reflecting their own rigid patriarchal culture.
That's horrifying. That must have been a tipping point for Bishop.
Absolutely. It's the moment he explicitly thinks, are we fighting on the wrong side of this war? All the rumors filtering back from Earth, the fortune cookies about the Kristang raping our home planet, demanding cities evacuate for their convenience. It all starts to click into place.
They're not allies, they're occupiers, overlords in waiting.
And it gets even worse. The Kristang aren't even the top dogs.
Seriously, there's another layer.
Yep. They're client species to the Thurinin.
The Thurinin, who are they?
Remember the second set of lights that showed up? That was likely them. Initially described as little green men, but the reality is far creepier. They're cyborgs. Heavily augmented, networked, implanted computers.
Oh, great. Cyborg overlords.
And they have a history of genocide against their own variant races. They're all about uniformity, control, and they utterly disdain lesser technology, which explains the Kristang's attitude towards us. It's a hierarchy of contempt passed down the line.
So humanity is at the absolute bottom of this galactic food chain. We're just...
Bacteria. Monkeys. That's literally how the advanced species view us. Primitive, annoying, potentially useful, but ultimately insignificant.
Wow. Okay. Things look incredibly bleak. Is there any hope?
Well, just when you think humanity is utterly doomed, stuck between genocidal rodents and manipulative lizards controlled by disdainful cyborgs, something completely unexpected happens.
Enter the beer can.
Enter the beer can. Bishop and his team are captured by the Ruhar during a mission gone wrong, thrown into a prison called Paradise, which is anything but. And in that prison, they find Skippy.
A shiny cylinder. A chrome-plated beer can. Not exactly the image of a savior.
Not at all. And he introduces himself as an artificial intelligence, an incredibly ancient, incredibly powerful AI. Oh, and he also calls humans monkeys and bacteria with undisguised contempt.
So, another jerk, basically. Just a digital one.
Initially, yeah, kinda. He's arrogant, sarcastic, easily bored, and seems utterly unimpressed by humanity's plight. But here's the kicker. He's been alone. For millions of years, trapped in that cylinder, observing, waiting.
Millions of years, alone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that adds a different dimension. Loneliness on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. And that boredom, that profound isolation, is why he finally decides to interact with Bishop and the others. Humanity, for all our flaws, is interesting. We're chaotic, unpredictable, maybe even entertaining. He's basically adopting humanity out of sheer cosmic ennui.
The ultimate wild card. And his personality is just gold. He breaks into the NSA database for fun.
Effortlessly, and complains about their unsolved crime rates and lack of funding for forensics. He develops a passion for fantasy baseball.
An ancient AI who loves fantasy baseball. Okay, that's amazing.
But he's also manipulative. He admits he manipulated this whole situation, nudging events, getting the Kristang and Thurinin focused elsewhere, potentially clearing the way for his own agenda.
Which is?
We'll get to that. But first, he proves his worth. He orchestrates their escape from the Ruhar prison.
How?
By basically being a god in the machine. He disables Ruhar weapons remotely, unlocks doors, feeds them tactical info. He gives Bishop a Ruhar stun rifle that's way more effective than human tasers, leading to some pretty brutal close-quarters fights against Kristang guards later.
He can just turn off enemy weapons, spoof cameras.
Instantly. He renders advanced alien tech useless with a thought. It completely changes the odds. Suddenly, this small team of humans, guided by a sarcastic AI, becomes incredibly dangerous.
So they escape Paradise, steal a Ruhar ship, the Dodo, another charming nickname, and Skippy tells Bishop to gather a specific team.
Yeah, and an international special forces crew. Chinese, Indian, British, French soldiers who are also prisoners. Bishop, reluctantly, finds himself in command of this unlikely squad, the merry band of pirates, as Skippy calls them.
A new proactive phase. No longer just reacting, but taking the fight to the enemy. And Skippy has a plan.
An absolutely insane plan. Capture a Thurinin star carrier, one of the top-tier ships, and use it to destroy the wormhole controller module that allows access to Earth's solar system.
Permanently cut off the Kristang and Thurinin from Earth. That's ambitious.
Understatement of the millennium.
Yeah.
But with Skippy running the ship's systems, it goes from impossible to merely suicidal.
And this forces Bishop into some really tough moral corners, doesn't it? He's suddenly a colonel, making life and death calls on a galactic scale.
Definitely. Like dealing with the Thurinan crew on the carrier they capture, Skippy just wants to vent them into space. Bishop objects, so Skippy compromises by putting them all into stasis indefinitely.
Which is better, marginally.
Skippy calls it not a win-win, but it is a win, don't lose any worse. Bishop is left wrestling with the morality, thinking, no downside except for my soul. It's that constant compromise, the heavy cost of command when your main advisor is an amoral AI.
The mission to get that wormhole controller from the asteroid base sounds brutal, too. Sacrifices are made.
Absolutely. Sergeant Yukishan's sacrifice is heroic and heartbreaking, throwing himself on a grenade. Colonel Chang gets badly injured but keeps fighting. It highlights the human cost, the grit and determination, even amidst the high-tech chaos orchestrated by Skippy. These aren't just pawns. They bleed, they hurt, they sacrifice.
And destroying the base afterwards? That sounds like pure Skippy.
Oh, yeah. Detonating antimatter inside a gas giant. The big red button moment. Skippy's lines are classic. Overkill is underrated. Followed by a slightly worried uh-oh when the explosion causes a self-sustaining energy release.
He's like a child playing with cosmic matches sometimes. Terrifying power, combined with that sarcastic detachment.
So why is Skippy doing all this? What's his real endgame?
Right. He didn't orchestrate all this just to save the monkeys, did he?
His ultimate goal, the reason he endured millions of years of solitude, is to find the collective.
The collective.
The beings who created him and others like him. The Elders, he calls them. An ancient, hyper-advanced race who moved stars, achieved practical immortality, and eventually just moved on or ascended or something. He misses them. He wants to reconnect.
So, helping humanity is just a means to an end. A way to get himself mobile and start searching for his creators.
That seems to be the core motivation. It's surprisingly emotional,
Okay.
poignant even. This godlike AI is fundamentally lonely and wants to find his family.
Which raises huge questions, right? About sentience, purpose, the future of intelligence.
Hmm.
If the Elders were real people who evolved into something wondrous, could humanity ever reach that?
It offers a glimmer of a potential incredibly distant future, but there's also a harsh reality check for Bishop.
Right.
He realizes that even if they succeed, even if they cut Earth off and save it, his promise to help Skippy find the Elders might be impossible. The captured warships. Earth governments will confiscate them the second they get back. Humanity first.
So Skippy might have saved Earth, but Bishop might have to betray him.
Or at least be unable to fulfill his end of the bargain. Bishop accepts that grim reality, no normal life anymore for humanity. His role just changed from being a Kristang rent-a-grunt to being, well, Skippy's primary agent, caught between the needs of humanity and the goals of an ancient AI. Still a pawn, just in a much bigger, weirder game. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So what a ride, huh? From a quiet Columbus day in Maine, invaded by potato-hating aliens, to being pawns in a galactic war, getting saved by lizards who want to enslave us, and finally teaming up with a sarcastic, omnipotent AI beer can to steal spaceships.
You really can't accuse Columbus Day of being predictable. It takes familiar sci-fi tropes and just twists them into this chaotic, darkly funny, and surprisingly thoughtful story about survival against truly impossible odds.
It absolutely forces you to ditch the simple good versus evil narrative. Who's the real enemy? Who's the ally? The lines aren't just blurred, they're practically erased and redrawn multiple times.
And it highlights that human element, the improvisation, the dark humor, the sheer grit. Even when faced with overwhelming tech and cosmic indifference, the absurdity of the ice cream truck, the low-tech solutions, it grounds the story.
Okay, meta take time. Zooming out, what's the legacy of a book like this? What's it saying about our world, maybe?
Well, I think it taps into anxieties about being small players on a big stage, whether that's geopolitics or, galactic politics, the feeling of being manipulated by forces beyond your control, the commentary on military bureaucracy, and the often absurd realities of soldiering definitely rings true for many.
And the idea that help doesn't always come from benevolent sources, that alliances are often transactional and self-serving, that feels depressingly relevant sometimes.
For sure. And the environmental angle with the Kristang wanting Earth as a pristine war prize while disdaining our reliance on fossil fuels, there's a subtle critique there too, perhaps.
So for our closing segment, our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We debated the Ruhar's spoiling attack earlier. Here's the what-if question. What if the Kristang had arrived first, unchallenged? What would Earth look like under their standard operating procedure?
Oof, that's a chilling thought. Would humanity have just been assimilated, managed into servitude without even the chaotic wake-up call of the Ruhar attack. Makes you think.
Definitely food for thought. Now, for a quickie recommendation, if you like the mix of military sci-fi, cynical humor, and overwhelming odds in Columbus Day, you might want to check out John Scalzi's Old Man's War. It's got a different premise, obviously, but shares that vibe of humanity being thrown into the galactic deep end, with soldiers dealing with crazy tech and even crazier aliens, often with a smirk.
Oh, good call. Scalzi definitely scratches a similar itch, that blend of high-stakes action and wry observation.
All right, that wraps up our deep dive into Expeditionary Force Columbus Day. If you got value from this, if we made you think, or maybe just chuckle at the thought of a Barney ice cream truck in space, please hit that like button.
And subscribe to PageJumpers podcast on YouTube. It genuinely helps us keep these conversations going.
And we want to hear from you. Jump into the comments and answer our big question. What's your hot take on the Ruhar's Columbus Day attack? Were they villains, pragmatic defenders, or accidental saviors? Let us know.
We're really curious to see what you think. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time, keep jumping through those pages.